From the Intellifluence headquarters in sunny Scottsdale, Arizona, this is the Intellifluence Influencer Spotlight. In each episode, we sit down with an influencer from our network and we discuss their background as well as their unique approach to influencer marketing. Can Ahtam is a Turkish photographer currently residing in Los Angeles. With over a decade of experience in photography, Can specializes in portraits, fashion, lifestyle, and product photography and is the founder of PortraitMeet. You can follow Can on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, and go to canahtam.com to learn more. Can you tell us a little bit about how you got into photography and a little bit about the company that you founded, PortraitMeet?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm originally from Turkey, born and raised in Istanbul, lived there for about 21 years. And I sort of, began my my exploration around photography as an average kid with a disposable camera in his hand given by his mother. And being part of Turkey has the advantage of actually being remote and accessible to any other country around, being in a country that connects Europe to Asia in particular. So I was fortunate enough to actually travel around the world. And unintentionally, as a kid, you start comparing cultures. You see the differences, you see the commonalities. They actually peak out really strongly. So I just started capturing all of those through my point and shoot, the disposable cameras I have. And then while I was in college, that sort of transformed into, I'm studying business, I'm studying marketing. How could I efficiently learn about marketing and actually connect it with other practices like psychology, sociology, and visual communications photography? So I took photography on the side back in college. Got heavily critiqued by my photography professor at the time. And we've all got that professor, the prick professor who actually meant to push you from the beginning, but you just didn't get it. So she was overly critical of my work, and she kept on saying, you don't have the eye for it. There are those types of people out there. You pay your tuition, and yet they go, nope, I'll take your money, but you suck. So what I did at the time was, I love photography, and being a person who has zero to none hobbies at the time, like my parents got me a guitar and I didn't even play it. It still is collecting dust. So they were happy that, I had something to hold on to. And I was happy as well, so I didn't want to lose that. I took my portfolio at the time to a renowned photographer named Ara Güler. He was a former Life magazine photographer. Had shot photos of a lot of different artists and celebrities, like Salvador Dali. He has a portrait of him. Really old individual, around his 90s at the time. He recently actually passed away, but I hold him dear to my heart and see him as the ultimate mentor in photography that I look up to, especially when it comes to portraits. But he owned a small cafe in Istanbul in Taksim district. His name means in between. Ara means in between in Turkish. And his cafe was this tiny little in-between cafe, in between two large buildings, a tiny cafe that he used to hang out at. Sip on his Turkish coffee, smoke his cigarette, occasionally chat with the individuals going in, photography enthusiasts. So I took my portfolio right out of college and I said, Mr. Güler, I'm a big fan of your work. He mostly shot black and white. I enjoyed shooting black and white as well, but I'm an avid color photography person. So I said, this is what my professor is telling me constantly. Could you please take a look at my work? I really need some encouragement and constructive criticism rather than somebody shutting me down. He looked at it, took a sip out of his Turkish coffee and had this small smile, a gesture. And he said, screw your professor. Do you like what you're doing? Do you enjoy what you're doing? Are you happy with it? And I said, yes, I am. He said, okay, well, here's the thing. You need to actually improve your composition. You need to work on being fluent with your camera more. But otherwise, I see nothing but amazing pictures coming from you. Keep on doing what you're doing. And that meant the world to me at the time, not at the time. I bet it would still mean a lot, as equally or as strongly even. But I was like, who cares about my professor? This guy is an epic photographer who's done a lot in his lifetime. And now he's telling me, do what you love. Don't let anything stop you. So around that time, I started collecting, built an archive, and Instagram popped up. But you know what? Around that time, when Instagram came out, everybody was about their smartphones. And I was like, okay, I have Instagram. It means instant photography. So I cannot really upload the photos I take on my professional degree camera to Instagram because one, it's not instant. Two, it's not from a smartphone because it's an app, it's on a smartphone. And technically it's cheating. That's what I thought it was. So I kept my photography on the side and just shared average Joe breakfast, stray cat, whatever I could find on the street on my iPhone 3G. And that was around the time when I transitioned from Istanbul to Boston. And around that time in Boston, I'm seeing my friends who at the time had like 3,000 followers. Imagine that. Like if you had 3,000 followers at the time, you were the god of Instagram. Mind blowing. But those were sharing their professional degree photos on Instagram. And I kept on pushing them. We were like, what are you doing? Is that the right thing to do? And they were like, no, you don't get it. This is where it's moving. So you better start on that as soon as possible so that you can be ahead of the game. So I said, okay, I'm in Boston. I have some old photos from Turkey. So let's do a nice mix from my travels as well. And it was around the time when Instagram had this suggested usership push going on. You know, they would promote the artists or the users, the community members per se, that they would find interesting, and then promote them within to the people who newly opened up an account or to the people who wanted to go to their settings tab and click on suggested users and find out who else is out there. So I've been promoted by Instagram 3 times, and that gave me the push that led me to today initially, because that push was recognized and seen by different brands. And again, although I studied marketing, you think I would already figure this out and realize that there's this concept of influencers, right? No, my whole head was going at, I want to be a photographer, I want to work with marketing, but not like, I don't want to be an influencer, I want to be a photographer. But you know, eventually brands started coming in. One of the first brands I partnered up with was Mashable. And they actually had me host one of the photo contests that they were having. And later on, that partnership grew more, and they actually hosted one of our Insta meets in Brooklyn, Bushwick, Brooklyn. And they streamed it on Meerkat. They had an intense support. And then I had a second partnership with them, also paired up with the Hilton Hotels. But right around the time in Boston was when I fully immersed myself in photography. And I was like, you know what? I am becoming a photographer. I got my education. I'm practicing it. I'm meeting all these different people through Instagram. Let's do it. Coming back to the other question that you've had about PortraitMeet, it's not a company. It's a group of individuals internationally that we've established. It started out in Boston, and it sort of came out out of a struggle. You know, having come from Turkey, long story short, nobody cared whether you took their candid photo on the street. You know, if they were aware of you shooting their photo, they would come up to you and say, oh, I realized you shot my photo. May I know what it's for? And if so, can I see it? Would you mind sending it to me so that I can show it to my family and friends? It was very open. Nobody see anything negative about it. Now that's Turkey. Coming into the US from a foreigner's point of view, man, you guys enjoy personal space. You guys want to protect that space as much as possible, which is understandable. I respectfully understand that and abide by it. But it was an obstacle for me. All of a sudden, the guy who shoots photos of, you know, street artists, imams, average Joe in Turkey comes into Boston, and everybody just goes, you know, what are you doing? What are you doing? Stop that. Can you please delete that? So as I'm attending to all of these Insta meets that are happening in Boston, I happen to realize that, you know what, it's not really about shooting photos of like Acorn Street, one of the most photographed streets in the US. It's in the old part of Boston. Every Insta meet that we would have, we would go explore around the city. People would try to take photos of the streets and the view, but there would always be several individuals jumping in front of 50, 60 individuals with like red balloons in their hands and beautifully dressed. Like they wanted to be that glamour element in their photo, right? And everybody would be all about that. So all of a sudden I said, you know what? Insta meets are about people. Insta meets are about getting to know one another and capturing that crisis moment that we're immersed in. So what if we actually created a community, a group that only revolved around shooting photos of each other? Doesn't have to be professionally signed models. It could be modeling enthusiasts. It could be somebody who even needs a headshot for their passport or their LinkedIn. It was just about how we perceive one another. And basically, I needed people voluntarily to come to me and ask me to take their photos. Because again, I couldn't shoot candid, right? So I needed people. The first portrait meet I did, I was actually 15 minutes late to that, and I had about 20 to 25 people join. And then years later, 3-4 years down the line, now we have over 100 per city joining. So far, I've only done around 5 in LA. I'm hoping to expand that. And then we have a group in DC, they're rocking it. And then we've done some in San Francisco, we've done some in New York back in the day. We have groups in Indonesia and India, Greece and Canada. Yeah, and it wasn't even coming from me, going out to people saying, hey, would you mind starting a group yourself? It was them coming to us saying, listen, we love what you guys are doing. You don't charge at all. It's always free of charge. It's always embracing. You don't have to be a professional degree photographer or a model. I've had a grandpa show up with an iPad, I've had a kid show up with his point and shoot and he dragged his parents along with him. And guess what? That kid shot photos of Steve Jobs when he went to an Apple event back in the day. So that's why it is that importance of acceptance of, basically what piques us and has us come through other Instameet groups. When I came to LA, I attended several Instameet groups here. They always charge, whether it's for location, models, whatever it may be. Models pay 60, photographers pay 120, or models pay 30, photographers pay 60. At PortraitMeet, we find sponsors. Everything's free of charge, and we just enjoy. We shoot away, we enjoy, we improve one another. In Boston, we were sponsored by the Sheraton Hotel Group, for instance. We had the pleasure of shooting at their Beacon Hill Lounge where the Red Sox party at. Or we had a pool party at the Sheraton one time. Some of us shot underwater portraits, and some of us shot more of the swimsuit line. So it is usually around that. Here in El Segundo, California, we actually have a photo studio and a co-working space called Unita, and they've been really nice and kind enough to host us multiple times. I'm currently planning some portrait meets with different camera brands. I don't want to disclose that right now. I'm hoping it's going to be big, but I'm really excited about it. So that's pretty much PortraitMeet in a nutshell.
That's wonderful. And then what are some of your favorite strategies or tools, such as apps, that would be helpful and useful for influencers that are looking to elevate their photography or just create higher quality posts? Like just some advice,
I'd say don't chase after the trends, because I know trends do work. Trends definitely work. From the Teza app where you create yourself as an Oompa Loompa, to all of the, lens bowl shots and the cell phone reflection neon light stuff. Yes, you know what? If you want the likes, if you want the followers, they're going to get you those. But again, you don't want to be of the same group. You want to actually truly discover yourself and come out shining, bright like a diamond. As a cliche description, but you truly want to discover yourself and showcase what you can uniquely bring to the table as opposed to being one of the other sheep. And I don't mean this to be demeaning or offensive, because that's an easier route. The best strategy would be to take the bolder risk and actually innovate and create your own. And for that, I would definitely go around exploring different apps. Visco has been an extremely helpful tool for me to actually figure out what works for me, what works for different photos. I can't use the same filter on every photos. I can't do the same editing on every photos. Portrait or landscape or product, it doesn't matter. It all deserves a different kind of editing based on what the brand needs, based on what the person needs. So there are those who actually keep a consistent theme. Hats off to them, because you're actually restricting yourself. I'm not that type of a person. I cannot hold on to one theme. That'll drive me insane. And I know photography requires different set of settings, different set of editing skills, everything you may need, from styling to the scenery, whatever you can think. So why would I ruin that unique moment with one particular set of filters? So that's why I would highly encourage people to actually go about, finding their own niche. Go find your own apps, start out with the free ones and then make your way up to the subscription-based or the fee-based ones so that you don't take the risk. Same goes with the gear. Usually, there's this misconception out there that, if you have the best gear, the most expensive one, you're going to take the best photos out there. To a degree, only if you know how to use that. Only if you know when to use it, how to use it, and for what purpose to use it. I met a lot of people who would show up with the most expensive hand burner cameras, Leica, Hasselblad, and all the high-end Sony cameras. I shoot with a Canon 5D Mark III. It's been, proven worthy enough to shoot editorial to regular tourist photos if needed. But even for a tourist, it's too expensive. I've been still using it. It has a lot of scratches and dents on it, but you know what? It does the trick. I've always invested in lenses first. If you buy a body, at least buy a decent enough body that you can actually upgrade lenses onto. And then when you feel like you have the capability, to use and upgrade to a body, That way your lenses will still be compatible. So that was pretty much the strategy I followed. I don't stay loyal to one particular brand either. I like to explore different brands. So I've shot with Olympus, Samsung, Canon. I've shot with, Huawei's phones with the Leica camera on them. I'm shooting with Light L16. I don't know if you're familiar with that particular camera. It actually has 16 different lenses on a single body. And it's a computational photography that basically creates 52 megapixel photos at the end of the day. From 28 meters to 150 millimeter zoom, it all is encompassed in one body. So I just like to think of different innovations and test them out to see how my photography will actually be influenced by that, or will be changed by that, or maybe I can get to changed through that camera. But basically, long story short, again, just find your own way. Don't struggle to be of the same, because you can only get so far by doing that.
So where do you see influencer marketing or visual-centric content heading on social media in the next 5 years or so?
We were chatting about this at the workplace that I work at as well, because we look at the influencer marketing and all that environment, but it also is divided upon different generations. The millennial population has always been so perfectionist. We had to be part of that clan. We had to show ourselves because we're unique, we're special, we deserve it, that type of an attitude. But then you look at the Gen Z doesn't care. Gen Z wants to be transparent. Gen Z is okay with shooting a ridiculous selfie and posting that because that makes them more unique and stand out more and become more personable. But when you ask that question to me, of course, technically I should answer through the lens of a photographer as opposed to an influencer. But when you look at the influencer landscape, brands want micro-influencers. Brands want people who are more transparent and more edgy now, so that people can actually stop for a second as they're scrolling with their motor reflex and say, hey, what is that about? Again, if you're part of the same clan, people are just going to keep scrolling. They're just going to keep scrolling. There's nothing special. So you need that, oh, what is that? Like that question mark moment where people are intrigued to see more. And I think Gen Z is actually, doing that really well. But from a photography standpoint, again, I don't really see my photo quality as somebody's mobile phone selfie quality, So to me, photographers are going to continue doing what they're doing. They're going to continue providing quality content, improving themselves. But when it comes to an average influencer, I think it's going to get down to that transparent moment. Some of the brands, I'll give you one example, Sperry, for instance, one of the East Coast shoe companies. They actually, when we worked, I signed a 1-year deal with them back in the day. They didn't care about your followers. They didn't care about your like counts and your features, none of that. They cared if you could actually capture unique and quality content that they could use in a longer term as opposed to just a single repost on their Instagram. Could it be used on a packaging? Could it be used on their web platform? Could it be used as a poster or a brochure on their magazine? Because again, when you look at the Gen Z platform, a single selfie or a cell phone photo with no effort whatsoever, is that usable for a brand in a longer term period? Can you utilize that influencer more so that you can actually, suck the best juice out of them? Strategically speaking, having worked at those types of companies, I don't think it's feasible enough. Those are only good for reposts. I don't see that happening for a website. But then again, who knows? I might be wrong. And all of a sudden, this new generation flips us all over and says, you were doing everything wrong. This is what it is. Deal with it. But technically, if you are in e-com, if you are part of a fashion brand or whatever have you, professional photography, unique quality is necessary.
Want to join Intellifluence as an influencer for free? It's easy. Visit Intellifluence.com, click on the influencers link, and then click on the Join for Free button to sign up. Once you have registered, you will get immediate access to our influencer marketplace where you can browse relevant offers from brands and apply on the spot. You'll also be eligible to receive attractive product and service pitches from brands. There's absolutely no cost to join as an influencer, so we hope you take advantage of our service. Also, be sure to like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and well, you know the drill. Until our next episode, keep being awesome.